So if you're in like a healthy body fat percent, not percent, but if a healthy body weight, what is generally defined as a healthy body weight, which means your BMI is probably within a certain range and your waist circumference is probably within a certain range. I don't know. I always, when I have clients like that who are like, I want to lose weight, I'm like, why? I'm like, you know, when you're in that, you're not going to improve your health when you're in that number. I'm like, you can still build muscle and strength maintaining your weight. I mean, if you want to get leaner, that's doable. But if you're really struggling with this and it's like a source of anxiety or like a source of, I'm like, why don't you gain weight? Like I've actually
Well,
said
I
that, and
think
you should see the look on people's faces when I say that sometimes. When I say, why, I'm like,
well,
well, your BMI is like 22 and your waist is like this. Why don't you gain weight? You're still well within the healthy range.
I think people because it's what they know, what they think they know, right? They think that gaining weight means I'm going to be having this eating frenzy and I'm going to gain, I'm just going to plump out into this big Teletubby. They don't understand that you can do things like this strategically with a purpose and slowly over the course of time. So you can change how you look, body recomposition, which by the way, most people who are, I don't want to say most, but many people who are small who say, I just have this last little bit of belly fat that I want to lose, that insist on beating a calorie deficit to death for this little bit of belly fat. Those are the people that would benefit, I think, from going into maintenance, putting in some more calories on board, get more energy, fuel your workouts better, get a workout program that makes sense that you can build some muscle and watch how you change how you look. That's super important because you can beat that calorie deficit to death. You're going to have to really dial in the calories, probably lower them more than what you want, and you're going to have to increase your movement more than probably you want. And then you have to ask yourself, is it worth it? Is it worth trying to do it this way? You know? And then the answer may be no, in which case, okay, let's add calories back in slowly, get you back into maintenance, and now let's pound some weight. Let's focus on athletic goals. Like, let's focus on increasing your push ups. Let's focus on getting you that first chin up. Let's focus on deadlifting your weight or whatever it is. Let's focus there and watch what happens with all the other stuff.
And the one thing I would note for those people who you said is if we're talking about specifically from like an aesthetic look perspective, I have seen this personally myself and with other people is like if you end up like gaining weight on purpose, like in a calorie surplus, and then you cut back down to that same weight that you previously were at, that you were like, oh man, I got this last little, you will end up having a better look from an aesthetic perspective if that's all you care about. Right?
Yeah.
So not just from a health perspective, it's like even from an aesthetic perspective, you're severely hamstringing yourself by trying to, if you're already really low there to try and cut even lower. And most people who do that, they end up at their end stage and they're like, wow, I'm just like kind of skinny and I don't really have like the muscle definition that I wanted to have.
Yeah, I went into a 6 month muscle building phase for the first time in my life about a year ago, and I planned it out with Jordan that I aimed to gain a pound a month, and I did. After 6 months, I was up 6 pounds. It worked out perfectly, and I opted not to go into a cut. I looked at myself. I'm like, I like being filled out more. I like having a little more meat on my bones. I like the muscle. And so since then, naturally, I've dropped out of the six. I've probably dropped two or three, and I've just sat there now for almost a year. And I feel better. I feel like I look different. I look at my pictures before, and I look at those now, and I'm like, I was so thin. I mean, I'm using the word thin in not a positive way when my whole life I would have thought that is a huge compliment. And it's so interesting how the perspective shifts, right? I didn't want to look like that anymore. I like how I look now much better. Am I carrying more body fat? Yeah, I am. But to me, that's worth me being able to eat the way I eat at this stage of my life. I was saying on this consult call I had earlier, I'm at this, I'm 60 years old. I do not have my life is not infinite. I mean, I don't go on forever here. So my timeline is much shorter than yours or other people's, right? And I look at that really carefully now. Do I want to spend any time forcing myself to lose 5 pounds or something ridiculous that I'm not really going to look that different or whatever? No, I've wasted too much time on that before. I'm not going to do that anymore. So yeah, I'm carrying more body fat. Does it bother me sometimes? Yeah, okay, a little bit, but whatever. I really just am happier the way I look now and how I can eat now just because of what I've done.
And I think some people also they when you said like, oh, I'm gonna build some muscle, um, they will say like they think of like build muscle as like they think of like this hard like chiseled like I'm building muscle, right? Like if I'm going to gain weight, I'm going to look like The Rock, right?
Yeah.
When it's like, I mean, that's what happens actually when you lose weight. That's what
Yes.
makes you chiseled and lean and like hard
Great point.
looking, is when you lose weight, not when you gain weight. When you gain weight, it makes your muscles appear fuller and softer and more like actually probably the look that those people are going for.
Yeah. Yeah. No, agree. I think most people will like going into a cut. Doesn't mean you have to. Like I said, I was one of those that opted not to because I kind of liked how I looked at the end. But I think, I think everyone needs to understand what's involved with building muscle too, and the mindset with that, especially I think for women who have spent so many years wanting the scale to go down. And now for the first time, you actually are trying to make it go up. And that plays with your mind. I mean, I wasted my first month bullshitting myself saying, oh, you know what? I'm not hungry for those extra calories today. I'm just not going to eat them. Yeah, right. Wink, wink. No, I could have had the shake. I could have found room to have that shake. I opted not to do it because I was full. And once, and Jordan, he called me on it on a podcast. It was so funny. We were talking about this specifically, and we went down this rabbit hole. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I see what I'm doing here. I mean, it was like a revelation on this podcast. Like, I see exactly what I'm doing here. I can't do this anymore. I have to do what I'm supposed to do if this is going to work. And from that moment on, I said, okay, whatever happens, it's going to happen. Let's go, And it was so much more effective at that point too.